to the character at all. He had to be a very serious guy, actually, and he was playing a form of racial discrimination, so to speak.
James Arness says this is why he never kissed Miss Kitty despite their undeniable chemistry spanning 20 seasons on Gunsmoke. Fans watched Marshal Matt Dillon and Kitty Russell dance around romantic possibilities for years, yet the relationship never progressed beyond subtle undertones and longing glances. What was really going on behind the scenes? Why would producers hold back the one moment fans wanted the most? And how did that single decision keep millions of viewers coming back week after week without even realizing it? Stay with me, because the truth behind television's most famous almost romance is far more calculated. The iconic pairing on Gunsmoke. Anyone who spent time watching television in the classic era probably heard the names Marshal Matt Dillon and Miss Kitty more times than expected. And a good reason existed for that. Gunsmoke stayed on CBS from 1955 all the way to 1975, which already sounded unbelievable when said out loud, because how many shows really last 20 years without losing attention? 635 episodes came out of that run, making the series the longest-running Western in television history. And the center of everything always came back to one man keeping order in Dodge City, Kansas. That man was U.S. Marshal Matt Dillon, played by James Arness in every single episode, which by itself felt rare, because how often did one actor stay in the same role for 2 full decades without stepping away? Matt Dillon was written as a calm, steady lawman, the kind of character who did not talk too much, but always seemed to know what needed to be done. Dodge City in the story stood in the post-Civil War years, a time when trouble could start from almost nothing, so the role of a marshal carried weight. Every episode placed Dillon in the middle of some problem involving outlaws, travelers, gamblers, or strangers passing through town, and the character always tried to handle situations with fairness instead of anger. That steady personality made Dillon feel real to many people watching at home. And that realism probably explained why the character stayed popular for so long. Right beside Dillon for most of that long run stood Miss Kitty Russell, played by Amanda Blake. And this part of the show added something different that many Westerns never managed to get right. Kitty owned the Long Branch Saloon, and that already made the character stand out. Because how many women on television at that time ran a business in a frontier town and still held respect from everyone around? Amanda Blake appeared in 425 episodes across 19 years, which meant Kitty stayed part of the story almost as long as Dillon himself. The role was never written as just a pretty face behind a bar. Kitty spoke with confidence, handled customers without fear, and often gave advice to Dillon when things became complicated. A question naturally came to mind while watching those scenes. Was Kitty only a friend, or was something deeper always there? The show never rushed to answer that question, and maybe that slow approach kept people interested for so long. Kitty acted tough when needed, but warmth always showed in conversations with Dillon, and that balance made the character feel human instead of perfect. Many fans started to see Kitty as the one person in Dodge City who truly understood the Marshal, even when the script never said that directly. The real curiosity started when the relationship between Matt Dillon and Miss Kitty began showing small hints that looked like romance, but never turned into a full love story. James Arness and Amanda Blake played scenes together in a quiet and careful way. And that style created chemistry without loud speeches or dramatic moments. Some people watching probably ask the same question again and again. Why keep the relationship so unclear for so many years? Producers believed that turning the friendship into a full romance might change the whole feeling of the show, and the series depended on balance between action, drama, and personal moments. Because of that choice, the connection between Dillon and Kitty stayed somewhere between friendship and love, never fully one thing or the other. Fans argued about the meaning of every look, every conversation, and every small moment that felt more personal than usual. Several episodes even called Kitty Dillon's Woman, which only made the mystery stronger. One of the clearest moments came during the 1971 three-part story called Gold Train the Bullet. In that story, Matt Dillon was shot, and Kitty faced another woman with words that sounded stronger than anything said before. Kitty declared that Matt belonged to her and said that nothing would stop the fight to keep him alive. That scene surprised many people because the show rarely allowed such direct emotion. Later in the same story, Kitty spoke about arriving in Dodge City 17 years earlier, and Matt answered in a quiet way that showed the memory had never been forgotten. Moments like that made many people wonder why the show never went further. If the feelings were always there, what stopped the story from giving a clear ending? That unanswered question stayed around for almost the entire 20-year run, and the slow tension became part of the reason people kept watching. Some critics even started calling Kitty Kissless Kitty, a nickname that sounded funny at first, but also showed how long the audience waited for something to finally happen. Amanda Blake once explained that questions about Matt Dillon came up constantly, sometimes dozens of times every single week, which showed how much the public cared about the relationship. The writers kept giving small hints, small looks, and small lines that suggested love. But the story always stepped back before anything changed for real. Then another surprise came near the end of the series when Amanda Blake left in 1974, 1 year before the show finally ended. That exit made many people think the chance for a real ending between Dillon and Kitty had disappeared forever. Years later, the reunion movie Gunsmoke Return to Dodge brought both characters together again, and hope returned for anyone who had followed the story from the beginning. But even then, the ending stayed quiet and final, with the two going separate ways instead of starting a life together. After 20 years of waiting, that choice felt strange to some people. Maybe the mystery itself had become too important to solve, or maybe the show worked better with questions instead of answers. Either way, the story of Marshal Matt Dillon and Miss Kitty remained one of those rare television relationships that never needed a perfect ending to live on in people's memories for decades. Viewers kept wondering what was left unsaid, what happened after the cameras stopped rolling, and whether the man behind the badge ever truly shared everything he felt about the journey. For years, the silence around it only made the story more powerful, almost as if the final chapter had been intentionally kept out of reach. But what many people didn't realize is that the quiet wouldn't last forever. Eventually, James Arness decided to speak, and when he finally broke his silence, it opened the door to questions nobody expected to ask. Stay with me, because what happens next changes the way this story has always been remembered. James Arness breaks his silence. After so many years, questions about the connection between Matt Dillon and Kitty Russell never really stopped. And that alone says a lot about how deeply that relationship stayed in people's minds. Anyone who watched the show for a long time kept wondering the same thing again and again. Why did the Marshal and the saloon owner always look at each other like something more was there, yet nothing ever truly happened? Why did every conversation feel like one small step away from romance, but the story never crossed that line? During the original run of the show, James Arness received endless questions about this exact topic, and the curiosity did not fade even after the series ended. Letters came in, interviews brought the subject back, and fans kept asking the same thing as if the answer had to exist somewhere. Was there a secret rule behind the scenes? Was the romance supposed to happen but never did? Or was the distance between Matt Dillon and Kitty Russell planned from the very beginning? James Arness understood that the mystery stayed alive for decades, and the silence around the subject only made people more interested. During the years when the show aired, very little explanation came from the actor, and that quiet response allowed fans to imagine all kinds of possibilities. Some believed the characters shared a hidden romance that the show never showed. Others believed the connection was only a deep friendship built on trust and respect. The truth never felt clear, and that uncertainty slowly turned into one of the biggest questions in television history. How could a show run for so many years with two characters so close, yet never allow the relationship to move forward? That question followed James Arness for the rest of life, and eventually the moment came when the answer could not be avoided anymore. The explanation finally appeared in the autobiography titled James Arness, an autobiography, where the actor decided to speak openly about the subject that fans refused to forget.
His actually strongest point, which was his marvelous sense of humor. But he was a wonderful guy to work with, and we all became friends. He just fit right into the family group.
James Arness admitted that the question about Matt Dillon and Kitty Russell came up again and again over the years, and the actor chose to face the topic directly instead of letting the mystery grow even larger. According to the words written in the book, fans often asked why the relationship never moved past the feeling of romance that always seemed to hang in the air between the two characters. That line alone made many people stop and think. If the romantic feeling was clearly there, then what stopped the story from going further? James Arness explained that the decision never belonged to the actor playing the Marshal. Creative control stayed in the hands of the producers, and the producers believed that taking the relationship to the next level could create problems for the show. That explanation surprised many people because the natural thought was that romance would make the story stronger, not weaker. So why would anyone think the opposite? According to the reasoning shared in the autobiography, the people running the show believed that a clear romance could change the entire balance of the series. A Western about a lawman keeping order in a dangerous town worked best when the main character stayed focused on duty. Adding marriage, family, or a settled life could shift attention away from the action that made the show popular in the first place. That idea may sound strange at first, but the producers believed that tension between Matt Dillon and Kitty Russell kept viewers interested without forcing the story into a different direction. Instead of showing a full relationship, the show allowed small looks, quiet conversations, and moments that felt close to romance, but never confirmed anything. That choice kept people watching week after week, always wondering if the next episode would finally change everything. James Arness also explained that the producers thought the mystery itself created excitement. Leaving the relationship unfinished allowed every viewer to imagine a different ending. One person could believe that Matt and Kitty loved each other deeply, but never spoke about it. Another person could believe that the two characters understood the danger of the Marshal's life and chose to stay apart. That kind of uncertainty gave the audience room to create personal answers, and the producers believed that imagination could be more powerful than a clear conclusion. Looking back, the idea starts to make sense. Would the show have felt the same if Matt Dillon had settled down early in the series? Would the stories still work if the Marshal had a family waiting at home in every episode? Those questions help explain why the writers kept the relationship exactly where it was. In another interview years later, James Arness talked more about the situation and gave a very honest opinion about the character. According to the actor, marriage would not have fit the life of Matt Dillon. The job of a marshal in a dangerous frontier town meant constant risk, long hours, and the possibility of never coming back from a fight. A character living that kind of life could not easily carry the responsibilities of a husband and father without changing the entire tone of the show. That explanation sounded simple, yet it answered a question that stayed around for years. Sometimes a story keeps something unfinished, not because the writers forgot, but because finishing the story would break what made the story work. The most important moment came when James Arness answered the question that many people wanted to hear more than anything else. Did Matt Dillon love Kitty Russell or not? When the question came, the actor did not hesitate. The answer came clearly, and the meaning left no room for doubt. James Arness said that there was no question about love being there. Hearing that answer made many fans feel that all the years of guessing were not wasted after all. The romance may never have been shown in the usual way, but the feeling behind the characters was always real. And maybe that is the reason the question lasted for so long. When a story refuses to give a full answer, the mind keeps going back, trying to finish the ending on its own. Even after all these years, the thought still comes up. Would the show have been better with a real romance? Or did the mystery make everything stronger? No single answer seems to satisfy everyone, and maybe that is exactly why the connection between Matt Dillon and Kitty Russell is still being talked about today. For years, fans kept asking the same question over and over again. Why did their relationship feel so real, so full of tension and emotion, yet never crossed the line people expected it to? Was it a missed opportunity, or was something else happening behind the scenes that viewers were never meant to notice? The more you look into it, the more you realize this wasn't an accident at all. In fact, there was a very deliberate reason the show held back in the one way audiences kept hoping it wouldn't. And when you finally hear the explanation, it changes the way you see every scene between them. Stay with me, because the truth behind it leads straight to one surprising decision. The strategic decision behind the no-kiss rule. Producers made a very deliberate decision from the beginning, and that decision surprised many people who expected the usual television formula where a man and a woman slowly fall in love and finally end up together. Instead of going in that direction, the creative team chose restraint, and that choice shaped the entire identity of the series. During a 1964 interview, Amanda Blake explained that the philosophy behind the show required romantic love to stay in the background because the main character's real struggle involved survival, duty, and responsibility. The setting of the Old West demanded different priorities, and that setting did not leave much space for soft endings or comfortable relationships. Blake explained that the situation came down to what felt like the wrong place at the wrong time. A quiet question naturally comes to mind here. Would the show have felt the same if the story had turned into a simple love story? Producers clearly believed the answer was no, and that belief guided every decision that followed. The creative team did not just avoid romance by accident. A conscious effort existed to remove any real chance of a relationship forming between Matt Dillon and Kitty Russell. Even leaving the door slightly open felt risky to the people running the show. Blake later confirmed that both producers and cast members stayed away from the idea of a love story as much as possible. Western heroes traditionally lived by a different code, and that code placed duty above personal feelings. A lawman in a frontier town faced danger every day, and such a life did not fit easily with romance. Blake once joked that a Western hero usually preferred a horse over any romantic entanglement. And although Matt liked Kitty more than any horse, nobody expected to see a kiss. That comment sounded humorous, but the meaning behind the words carried real truth. What would happen to the image of a strong frontier marshal if the story suddenly focused on dates and love scenes? That question stayed in the minds of the producers every time a script was written. At one point, a writer suggested that Matt should finally kiss Kitty, thinking that the moment would satisfy fans who had waited for years. James Arness rejected the idea right away. Arness explained that the moment Matt Dillon crossed that line, the character would stop being a symbol of law and order and would become just another man dealing with personal emotions. That change might sound small at first, but the creative team believed the entire balance of the show depended on that distance between the two characters. Once a kiss happened, the mystery would disappear. Without mystery, what reason would remain for people to keep watching week after week? That question mattered more than any single scene. Gunsmoke built tension through silence, through looks that lasted a second longer than expected, and through conversations that stopped before anything serious could be said. Directors later admitted that the actors never needed physical contact to make the connection feel real. A pause between lines sometimes said more than a full speech. A glance across a room could carry more meaning than a hug. Strange as it may sound, nothing happening became the very thing that kept the audience interested. Why did people keep watching when the relationship never moved forward? Because the possibility always existed, and possibility can feel stronger than certainty. Another concern involved the character of Matt Dillon himself. A romantic ending might have made the character softer, and softness did not fit the image that the show built over many years. Matt represented a certain type of frontier hero, a man who carried responsibility first and personal happiness second. Marriage or a clear relationship could have changed priorities, and once priorities changed, the character might not feel the same anymore. Would a lawman who worried about home life still feel like the same fearless Marshal riding out to face danger? Producers did not want to take that risk. Amanda Blake understood this better than anyone. Blake believed Kitty's strength came from patience rather than possession. Kitty did not need a wedding to prove loyalty. Kitty did not need a kiss to show affection. The quiet understanding between the two characters already said enough. Over time, the decision to keep the relationship unresolved became part of the show's identity. After hundreds of episodes, fans still asked the same question again and again. Would Matt and Kitty ever end up together? Each season passed, and the answer never changed. Blake once told fans that imagination had to do the rest of the work. That answer might sound frustrating at first, but the truth behind the answer made sense. When a story gives every answer, curiosity disappears. When a story leaves something unfinished, the mind keeps thinking about it long after the episode ends. That unfinished feeling became a powerful tool. More than 600 episodes later, the decision still stood, and the show never lost the tension that came from holding back. Looking back now, another question appears. Would the series still be remembered the same way if the writers had given a clear romantic ending? Many people believe the answer would be no. The distance between Matt and Kitty never weakened the story the way some viewers expected it would. In fact, that quiet space between them slowly became the very thing that kept the story alive year after year. Think about it for a moment. How many television relationships fade once everything is said and done? Once the tension disappears and nothing is left to wonder about. But with them, the distance created anticipation. It kept viewers watching, hoping, and asking the same question every time they appeared on screen together. Would this finally be the moment something changed? That unanswered feeling became part of the magic, and without it, the story might not have lasted nearly as long as it did. The writers understood something very few shows ever managed to understand, and the actors felt it too, even when nothing was spoken out loud. Their connection worked in a way that didn't need constant declarations to feel real. And when you look closer, you start to see that the secret behind their lasting impact was never accidental. It was built carefully over time. So what exactly made their partnership work so well? And why did it hold the audience's attention for so many years? Stay with me, because the answer reveals more than most people ever realized. What made their partnership work? Anyone talking about the success of Gunsmoke always ends up coming back to the casting. And one name that keeps coming up again and again is Amanda Blake. James Arness noticed the impact almost immediately, and the way the praise was described made everything sound very clear. Arness said that Amanda Blake stood as an example of the kind of perfect casting that helped make the program work so well for so many years. That statement alone says a lot. because a long-running show does not survive on luck. Something has to feel right from the beginning. Something has to connect with people watching at home. Amanda Blake brought a natural quality to the role of Kitty Russell that made the character feel real instead of written. A saloon owner could have easily turned into a flat character with only one personality, but that never happened here. The performance carried strength, confidence, and also moments of softness that made Kitty feel human. And honestly, that balance makes anyone wonder how many characters on television actually manage to feel that complete for that long? 19 seasons is not a short run, so keeping the same character interesting for that amount of time says a lot about the person playing the role. Every scene showed control, timing, and emotion in a way that did not feel forced, and that kind of natural acting cannot be faked for long. Then the conversation always moves to the connection between James Arness and Amanda Blake, because the chemistry between both actors became one of the biggest reasons the show stayed strong for so many years. Nothing about the interaction between Matt Dillon and Kitty Russell felt stiff or artificial. The way both actors spoke to each other, the way both actors reacted in quiet moments, and even the way both actors stood in the same room created a feeling that could not be written on paper. That raises a simple question. How often does television manage to create a connection that feels real without needing big dramatic scenes all the time? In this case, the connection grew from understanding. Both actors seemed to know exactly what the relationship between the characters should feel like, even when the script did not spell everything out. That kind of instinct is rare, and when that instinct shows up on screen, audiences can sense it right away. Nothing looked forced. Nothing looked like acting for the sake of acting. Every moment carried a natural rhythm, and that rhythm slowly became one of the foundations that kept the program steady year after year. Respect behind the scenes also played a big part in keeping that chemistry alive, and the way both actors spoke about each other later makes that very clear. Amanda Blake once described James Arness as a true gentleman, and that choice of words tells a lot without needing a long explanation. James Arness returned the same level of respect by calling Amanda Blake a wonderful actress, and also a great friend. Friendship like that does not always happen in television, especially on a show that runs for decades. Long hours, pressure, and constant work can easily create tension. So hearing about a friendship that lasted through the entire run of the show makes anyone stop and think. How often do co-workers stay close for that long without problems getting in the way? In this case, the friendship did not stay only on the set. The connection lasted for 39 years, right up until Amanda Blake passed away in 1989. Stories from the set even mentioned that Amanda Blake sometimes came to the studio on days without filming just to spend time there. That detail says everything about how comfortable the environment felt. When a workplace starts to feel like family, the work itself usually becomes stronger without anyone trying too hard. All of that real-life respect slowly turned into something that people watching at home could feel without anyone needing to explain it. The bond between Matt Dillon and Kitty Russell never depended on obvious romance or dramatic love scenes to feel meaningful. Instead, the relationship worked because trust and care showed up in small moments. A look, a short line of dialogue, or even silence between both characters carried more weight than a long speech. That kind of acting makes anyone ask another question. Why do some on-screen relationships feel believable, while others feel empty even when the writing sounds good? The answer often comes back to the people behind the characters. When actors truly respect each other, the camera picks that up. When actors understand each other without needing long explanations, the audience can sense that too. In this case, professional chemistry mixed with real friendship, and that mixture created something that lasted almost 2 decades on television. James Arness understood that from the beginning, and the way the praise was given shows that the success of the show never belonged to only one person. Strong casting, natural acting, and honest friendship all worked together at the same time. Amanda Blake helped turn Kitty Russell into a character that felt alive, and the connection with James Arness helped turn simple scenes into moments people remembered for years. Looking back now, the success almost feels impossible to repeat. And that leads to one last thought that keeps coming up whenever this partnership gets mentioned. How many shows today could keep the same two actors together for that long and still make every interaction feel real? Not many. And that is exactly why the bond between James Arness and Amanda Blake still gets talked about long after Gunsmoke ended. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.